Hello everyone! Today I'm going to do a VR response to Marlene Theresa for Tarot to the Extreme or Tarot Extremes. This was one that I thought very long and hard about. Like, we're talking days. The second I saw this category and saw other people doing their VRs to it, I knew I wanted to participate, but I am not joking when I tell you there were some categories where I honestly sat for days and could not decide what decks to use. So I'm not gonna lie, there's some duplicates, mainly because I just simply don't have any other decks that fit these categories. But also I am going to, and I don't think this is exactly cheating, but I think I'm going to include you in my thought process for a couple of the categories where I couldn't decide between a couple decks. So I think I might include some of my alternates, and explain my thought process. You'll see when I get there. But let's get started. I don't want this to be a crazy long video. So the first category is Minimalist versus Maximalist. So I actually don't have a lot in the way of minimalist decks. So the only one I have is the Wild Unknown. Now this deck did make its rounds in a different category. Oh, we are upside down. In a completely different category. But for me, this is minimalist. This is the only deck I have that really, in my opinion, fits this. There's maybe one other one that I could toss into this category, but nope, this is the one. There's a lot of white space or a lot of black space, a lot of line work, but for the most part, in my opinion, this is very minimalist, at least in my shelf, on my shelf. I don't like saying in my collection, and I don't like saying in my library, so I've decided to say on my shelf. That's what we're going with. But yeah, so this is my Minimalist. My Maximalist is very new to my collection, and it is the Guardian of Night Tarot. Now, the reason I chose this deck was because I just feel like it's kind of got that collage-y effect to it, and I feel like every inch of space is used kind of similarly in a lot of cards to the Wild Unknown, but this has stuff in it. Like, it's not just line work. It's just there's so much to look at and so much to go by with these cards. I love working with this deck because there is so much, Coyote, there is so much to look at and so much to work with. So yeah, those are my Minimalist and Maximalist picks. Next category is daytime versus nighttime. My daytime deck, and I did kind of struggle with this category just because I've never really lumped my decks into daytime versus nighttime, but here we are. So the only one I could think of for daytime would be my Lucid Dreams Beginner Tarot. And I keep it in my Peggy bag. So, I mean, there's the sun on the back. Kind of, maybe. I don't know. There's also moons. I don't know. To me, this was the only one that really... I mean, I could have gone with This Might Hurt Tarot just because it's so bright, but I don't know. This one just seemed to stand out to me as a daytime usage. Pretty. I mean, even the darker image cards still, I think, offset by the light border, make it a daytime deck, in my opinion. Again, this is to each their own, right? That's why I love these tags, because you get a little bit of what everybody thinks. And I just feel like those are so sturdy. Like those are going to last. They're not going to chip the borders. I mean, if I lost you there. And now as for my nighttime, this was one again that there was about 3 options for this. And I ultimately ended up going with the Divine Feminine Tarot by Cocorina. This deck also almost made it into another category, which we will get to. So this is all black, you can see, with like gold, I don't know if it's showing up, but gold foiling on every card with a golden ink for the drawings. I think it's pretty self-explanatory why this is my pick for my nighttime. Now you can also get this deck in a black and white version, which I also love. However, I ultimately ended up picking this version because I liked that there was a variation of the golden ink, whereas with the black and white deck, it was just black and white. There's no gray. There's no any kind of gradient like you see here, different colors in the golden. Also, this deck almost made it into my worst shuffle category. For those of you who have this deck, I won't need to explain this to you, but it's very slippery. It's like a plastic cardstock. I don't know how to explain it. You can maybe kind of get the gist by the shimmer there and the sound it makes. But if I want to pick this up like this, you can see it slips. It's not, it's very, very tricky to work with. In some ways, it does shuffle great. Like because it slides, it does shuffle great, but I do find that cards often go everywhere. However, it did not make it into that category. So stay tuned for the next category to see what that is. But anyway, so those are my picks for daytime versus nighttime. Okay, next category is best shuffle versus worst shuffle. So for my best shuffle, I chose the Marigold Tarot. Now this tarot deck is a linen finish, as you can see, and if that looks familiar, I did purchase her altar cloth as well. So yeah, linen finish. Need I say more? This was one that was going to be a nighttime one. It was going to be a shadow work one. But ultimately, I just love how this deck shuffles. And it is the only pip deck on my shelf. I am not a fan of pips. If you have watched any of my videos, you would know that I'm very beginner, and pips for me are a bit of a struggle because I'm still learning, and like I'd be like, oh shoot, what's the 4 of Wands again? And this doesn't help me. I get nothing from that. However, this creator is pretty close to me geographically, so this is just one that I wanted to support them, and I love skulls and skeletons. I even love the florals that she chose to represent. How amazing is that? Like, I just love the art. I love it. I absolutely love it. But yeah, let's do what we're here for and shuffle. Now, if I'm being honest, this is not the first time I have filmed this video. The first time I filmed it, it was nighttime, and I just couldn't handle the glare off of my cards. And the first time I tried to shuffle this, disasters happened. So, say a little prayer for me. Well, whoever prayed, that worked. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful to shuffle. Absolutely just a joy to shuffle this deck. And I am not being facetious. Like, it's a feel-good shuffle. It makes me feel good. I just love it. But of course, we all know this about linen cardstock. If you agree. You don't have to agree. All right, now I feel like I just spent 20 minutes on my favorite shuffle. But next, this one was a bit of a disappointment for me because I do love this deck and I do love how the deck feels. It's the Dark Mansion Tarot. If you have this deck, you know it has a rose petal finish. I do think you can get it in another finish, but zero glare. I love that there's no glare on these cards, but it's almost like there's like a static cling. Like that's kind of what it feels like. And the first time I tried to talk about this, now it's not doing it here, but the first time I filmed this video, it did it perfectly for me. I tried to like, well, it's kind of doing it here. It's difficult to get one card. So even if you're doing it like this, see, I'm trying to grab this one guy and you have to go by the lip. You can't, like, they just don't slide. You got to grab the lip. Especially when they're evenly stacked on top of each other. It's just, you're not... Okay, well, now it's kind of working for me, but I don't know. If you have this deck, you know. If you know, you know. But it's, yeah, it's, I don't know. I love the rose petal finish. As a very textile person, I honestly, like, this is calming to me, if that makes sense to anybody. The smoothness is just a very calming feeling, but shuffling it is not the best time. It's just not. The riffle shuffle, I think, is okay. Let's give her a whirl. They're quite stiff, so... Yeah, I mean, it's not bad that way, but even, like, trying to force them in, it's not my favorite. That's all I'm saying. It's not my favorite. I still love this deck. It's one of the more expensive ones in my shelf. On my shelf. Definitely still love it and won't be parting with it. I love the colors. I love the artwork. The people are just adorable. But yeah, definitely disappointed in the shuffle. So there we have it. There is my best shuffle and worst shuffle. And the next category we have is confronting versus comforting. So the confronting deck for me is a no-brainer. It's the Trionfi della Luna Illustrated Pips edition that is obviously new to my collection. This one, this is not my style. It is not my aesthetic. I don't even know why I bought this. I think it was FOMO, to be honest. But it's definitely not my aesthetic. I don't have any other Patrick Valenza decks. I do not have the Deviant Moon. As much as I want to buy it because everyone who has it loves it, nope. Even this one, when I purchased it and I got it in my hands, I was like, ugh, I did not need this. What was I thinking? And then the more I looked at it, the more I went through it, the more I kind of started to fall in love with some of the little characters and some of what's happening in these cards. It's definitely a cheeky little deck, and I'm kind of feeling that. I'm feeling the cheekiness. But yeah, this is something like these faces, I just find them confronting, and some of the imagery I find confronting. But it's a good little deck. Spoiler alert, it's going to make another appearance. This is one of the ones I cheated on, so sorry about that. One of my favorite, Nine of Coins. But yeah, for obvious reasons, this is my confronting. It's just creepy. But I do love the cheekiness to it, and no pun intended. So that's my confronting. Now for comforting, we've got the sweet, sweet oak, ash, and thorn. This deck, prepare to hear the word sweet 100 times in the next 60 seconds. It's just my sweet deck. It's adorable, and I just think it is sweet. I love the animals. It's just comfort to a T for me personally. Maybe not everyone's cup of tea. I think it's adorable. I think it's, I don't know, every time I use it, it's just my sweet little deck. That being said, I could totally use this for shadow work or something along those lines, but just when I need to be comforted, when I need to have that sitting by the fire with a cup of tea feeling, here we go. Just perfect for this category. This one I did not have to think twice about. This was immediately my selection for my Comforting deck. It is a chunky monkey though. Like, I don't think I can even shuffle it fully. No. So there we have it. That is Confronting versus Comforting. Okay, next category. Everyday versus every so often. Every day, I chose the Lightseers. No real shocker here. I just feel that this deck is relatable, it's colorful, it's modern. No real surprise. It doesn't stray too much from RWS. Yeah, it's just a regular old go-to. And I feel like, so I could have chosen This Might Hurt Tarot for this category, but I didn't, because the This Might Hurt Tarot is pretty cartoony. So it can be a little bit difficult to see yourself in those types of artistic cards. But these people are more realistic looking. And, you know, like that man has gray white hair, like perfect. So I just feel that this is a perfect everyday selection. And my every so often selection, this is where I'm going to stray a little bit and just kind of go off on a little bit of a rant. I'm not cheating fully, but initially I had picked my Modern Love Tarot for this category. And I did kind of pull out a couple cards to kind of explain this thought process. This is a great love deck. It's also very modern and very inclusive. There are some cards, which I have just picked a handful here to show you, where the depiction is changed a little bit to make it more of a love-themed deck. So for that reason, I do tend to use this for love readings or in the month of February. But I definitely have used it for normal, non-love related readings. However, there was another deck that fit this category a little bit more, in my opinion. And it doesn't have a box, but it's my HP Tarot. The bag was purchased separately off Etsy. So, HP Tarot. Super creative backings, very glossy. Hi, window. But this one, I love this deck. Again, one of the more expensive decks in my collection. But I just find that when working with this deck, it's so nostalgic and like it's honestly kind of heartbreaking. Some of the cards are heartbreaking. The character who plays what's his face's mom? Oh my god. I swear I'm a Harry Potter fan. I really am. But she's passed away in real life. So some of them, and even some of the scenes themselves, are a little bit sad to see when you come across them. So I find when I'm reading with this, it's very fun, but I do get caught up in the scenes from the movies, and I do get caught up in the nostalgia and the, oh, this is one of my favorite characters, or this was one of my favorite scenes, or oh, this was a really sad scene. I know a lot of people don't like this for the artwork. I personally love it. There are some that kind of aren't as well put together as others, but yeah, I don't use this too often. What I do use it for, and it's perfect, is my private YouTube readings that I do with my circle of friends, and I have selected some Harry Potter spreads from Pinterest, and we'll do a pick a card video with a Harry Potter spread. So it works really well for that, and of course Harry Potter fans are gonna love it, but it's just, yeah, I'm just such a fan of the Harry Potter movies, and I've seen them all so much that I tend to get lost in the actual scenes of the movie. Where's the one? Of course it's going to be at the very end, where it just gets me every time. This one right here. Ooh. Yeah, perfect for the Three of Swords. And one of my favorite strength cards is in here. Course, also, here we go. Excellent strength card. So yeah, so that's my every so often pick, which doesn't have a box. So we're gonna do our display here. Every day, every so often. All right, quite possibly the worst category, overrated versus underrated. This is one that took me a very, very, very long time to select decks for. I sat in front of my shelf, staring at all of my decks, trying to pick the perfect deck for both of these categories. I struggled with both of them, to be honest. And full disclosure, even the decks that I have chosen, I personally don't feel are an accurate selection, because I don't feel that I really own any decks that are underrated. Well, the one that I picked it's a very safe pick, and you'll see why in a second. But I also don't feel like any of them are really overrated. Sorry, the overrated one is the obvious one. The underrated one is the one, like, all of my decks that I have lived up to their hype. So yay. I mean, thankfully I don't really have any decks that I regret purchasing. And if I do, they're in purgatory. But here we go. So my overrated deck is my Reflective Tarot. So this was a safe pick for me, just because I couldn't think of anything. So yeah, fun, flashy, regular old Rider-Waite-Smith with a little bit of spice. But I didn't need this deck. You put a little iridescent coating on it and whatever. I absolutely did not need this deck. I don't even know if I've really used it, to be honest. I do like the size because it's not quite a mini, but it's not a full-size deck either. So the size is pretty interesting. But yeah, as far as the hype on this one, I mean, not that there was hype, but yeah. I could take it or leave it, to be honest. I really don't need an iridescent Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. But yeah, definitely played it safe with this category, because quite honestly, this was the only option. The only option. And underrated. Again, I do feel like I kind of cheated in this category, because this deck is brand new to me. And that's why I think it's underrated, because it's brand new-ish. But it's the Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot. Just got it. I know there was an indie version, so it has been out for a little bit. But in my opinion, this deck just has so much going on, so much to look at, so much to choose from when you're reading with it, so many intuitive hits, and it was just the thought process that went behind these is just like, oh, I wish I was this smart. I wish I was. I really do. There's just a lot going on with these that is chef's kiss. And I know that this isn't exactly an underrated deck, because a lot of people are talking about it right now. Guys, I struggled with this category. I absolutely struggled. I am not joking. I almost skipped this category altogether, and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm just not picking. But I didn't want to be that guy. So here we are. This is what we're doing. This is what we're working with, because it's brand new to me, and every time I look at the cards, I see something new, something that I didn't see the first time. And I just think that the creator did an excellent job of deciding what to put in these cards. So yeah, I cheated a little bit because it's brand new, and that's why. I mean, maybe if I've owned it for a few months, I wouldn't feel that way necessarily about it, and I wouldn't be putting it in this category, but I think everyone should own this deck. There. That's what we have going on here. So there you have it. Overrated versus underrated. Okay, last category. Light work versus shadow work. Light work. I chose the Golden Art Nouveau. Full disclosure, I don't really use different decks for light work or shadow work. Also, full disclosure, I don't really do light work or shadow work. So there's that. But if I were to, these would be my picks. So I don't love these backs. I don't think I'm alone in this one. They just don't even seem to fit. I don't understand what's happening there. But anyway, these cards, they are Rider-Waite clones, which is what I like for light work, shadow work, that kind of stuff. But they have a little flair, a little pizzazz. So they're not just your straight up Rider-Waite Smith. There's a little something something. So this is what I would use for light work because, yeah, it's just simple, but also not boring. To be honest, I was just thinking this as I was speaking. I would probably even use this one for shadow work as well, for the same kind of reason. Because it's a Rider-Waite Smith, it's not boring. I personally don't subscribe to the whole using a dark deck for shadow work thought process because I feel like that just perpetuates the idea that shadow work is dark and I don't know. I think shadow work can be shiny and golden too. Now this one might get me in trouble. My shadow work deck that I have chosen for the shadow work that I do not do. This was one where I could have done the Marigold Tarot, but I didn't because the Marigold Tarot is pippish, and if I'm doing shadow work, again, I want something that's going to be straightforward, that's going to give me the messages clearly, that I don't have to kind of get distracted and get sidelined and be like, oh crap, what's the Seven of Cups again? Because these 7 flowers aren't making sense to me right now. So the Marigold Tarot was out for that one. Another one I could have done, I kind of thought the Intuitive Night Goddess, because it is a solitary deck. As Lisa Papez kind of explained, it kind of has that feel to it where you're going to be using it for solitary work instead of like fun group work. But it's almost, I don't know. I used it in the last category, but either way, it was going to be a duplicate is what I'm trying to say. Long story short. So, yet again, I went with the Trionfi della Luna because I almost feel like the word confronting, which is the last category that this was in, is what shadow work is. Shadow work is confronting. And this deck is confronting. It's not really a stretch to think that this deck would be used for shadow work? Question mark? Period. And a lot of people also chose the Deviant Moon for their shadow work as well. So yeah, sorry to throw in a duplicate, but all of my options were duplicates for this category. So, but like I said, any deck can be used for shadow work. I am not one of those person that prescribes to the belief that shadow work decks should be dark or even bizarre looking, I guess you'd call this. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like this would be a good deck for shadow work. It's not dark aesthetic wise, like it's fairly light deck actually. But yeah, the characters, I kind of feel like they're going to give you some confronting messages, some stuff you got to work through. So, a little bit of a cheat. Sorry, not sorry. Light work versus shadow work. And we have come to the end of my YouTube video. I am sweating in my room trying to film this. As I said before, this was the second time I tried to film this. The first time, sadly, I straight up edited this video and I was like, no, don't like it. So if you ever have that happen to you, I'm right there with you. I know how that feels. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the other tags to this video. I know that I have been, so I'll see you when I see you, probably for my, what month is this? August roundup. So I'll see you then.